Hi, my name is Jules Clinton, and I will be presenting on how power presents itself in communication. This is my final fall 2021 presentation for Anthropology 350, Speech, Thought, and Culture at Washington State University. From the TV show The Vampire Diaries, I analyzed a scene from season 5. In the scene, the characters are experiencing stressful circumstances, and each character has a motive. Through my analysis of how each character communicated in each scene, I set out to define the traits that can set someone up to be in a place of power in stressful times and arguments. What the scenes had in common was that they involved 3 of the same characters, Damon, Jeremy, and Bonnie. First, I analyzed each character's racial, age, and gender demographic. First, there is Bonnie, a 21-year-old female of African American descent. Next, there is Jeremy, a 20-year-old male of Caucasian descent. And lastly, there is Damon, a 175-year-old vampire of Caucasian descent who still has a 25-year-old's body because that is when he stopped aging. In the first scene, Damon is looking for Bonnie, but at this point she is dead and a ghost that only Jeremy can see. Jeremy and Bonnie are together before Damon barges in looking for Bonnie. He raises his arms and hands, struts in, and directly phrases what he wants. He says, "Call her, get her here." Jeremy gives a myriad of excuses while shifting eye contact between Damon and the floor consistently. Bonnie stands between Jeremy with her arms crossed, behind Jeremy with her arms crossed, and widens her eyes with sadness behind her voice begs, "Please don't do this, Jeremy." Jeremy doesn't listen to her and speaks softly, finally breaking it to Damon indirectly. "You're not listening. Magic always finds a balance," referencing Bonnie's death as she sacrificed to raise him from the dead. Next, let's take a look at the characters' motives and how they try to accomplish their motives. Bonnie's motive is for Jeremy to not inform Damon that she is dead. Bonnie stays quite silent for the most part. But when she pleads with Jeremy to not tell Damon, her tone of voice has emotion behind it, but not urgency. She doesn't place emphasis on any words, and the tone throughout her sentences is consistent. Her body language is closed in an attempt to shrink herself. Her arms are crossed and her posture is slouched. She looks at the ground often and widens her eyes sadly when occasionally looking up to make poor eye contact. Bonnie doesn't end up succeeding in getting Jeremy to tell Damon that she is dead. Jeremy's motive is also to not let Damon know that Bonnie is dead. He attempts to show neutral body language to show that he is not intimidated by Damon, but doesn't necessarily succeed. He widens his eyes and raises his eyebrows, trying to make strong eye contact with Damon, but he can't help but occasionally look down at the ground. At first, he tries to make a myriad of excuses as to why he cannot answer directly, and when he finally tells Damon that Bonnie is dead, he says it in a very indirect way. When he speaks, his voice is lowered and he places emphasis on the middle of his sentences, and his tone rises before it falls at the end of sentences. In the end, he doesn't succeed in keeping Bonnie's death a secret. Damon's motive is to find out where Bonnie is. He displays dramatic and engaging body language. He raises his hands and cocks his head from side to side while speaking. He moves around the room while maintaining strong eye contact and pointing. He furrows his eyebrows and bares his teeth. Every time he speaks, his language is brief and demanding. His tone of voice is urgent, and he places emphasis on the end of his sentences. He ends up being the only character who achieves his motive. In conclusion, Damon's power to sway the situation stems from his display of confidence. This can be attributed to his identity in relation to Bonnie and Jeremy. He is about 150 years older than the both of them and is as physically able as both of them since he has the body of a 25-year-old. The TV show is set in Mystic Falls, North Carolina in the USA. Culturally speaking in the US, The opinions and needs of Caucasian men tend to be more respected, as opposed to women of color. His innate demographic, as well as his years of experience communicating, had already set him up to succeed in getting what he wanted. It helps to be born into a certain demographic, but one doesn't need that to practice and hone effective, persuasive communication skills to navigate difficult situations like dating. This is not to say that Jeremy and Bonnie have poor communication skills at all times, but Damon definitely held power over both of them.